Welcome to the Artist Advisory Hotline, the podcast for artists who want valuable guidance and honest answers on how to grow their careers and develop their new project from leading art world experts and artists. Here's your host and founder of the Artist Advisory, Marina Granger. Tune in as she gets you the answers you deserve.
Dearest gentle reader. Okay, who else is watching Bridgerton? Okay, I am not the lady whistledown of the art world, but we've definitely had one of them on the podcast a few episodes ago who wrote a whole book about it called Get the Picture. Another one that is really good at gossip is probably Jerry Gagosian, and it's validated gossip. It's good. And also, there was Sarah Thornton, who wrote 7 Days in the Art World ages ago. So, yeah. Anyway, if you're watching Bridgerton, let me know. I have not watched past episode 4 of this season yet, but I can't wait. Oh my God, it's going to be so good. So, today we have another solo episode for you guys. It's just going to be you and I today. I want to tell you that for the past 2 weeks, I have had a major reshuffling of the cards. It felt so chaotic. I was telling my friends, I was like, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. I could totally get into it, but in a nutshell, I was sick with an ear infection. So weird for a week. And then I started to do somatic exercise course. And maybe I talked about doing somatic exercises before in this podcast, but I started a new course. And when you start one of these courses, so somatic exercises are super, super gentle and lazy, and you have to do them daily. And the course that I signed up for is like a 30-day course. And so the first few days, you release so much emotion, so much pent up emotion, so much trauma, and you process it. Your body processes it. What these exercises do is essentially relax your muscles enough to allow yourself to process those emotions and reset your nervous system. And when you reset your nervous system, that's when the creative juices flow, right? Because when we are in fight or flight or freeze mode, it's like really hard to focus on being creative. You're just like, hey, I want to survive. And if you are the type of artist who's like, okay, I just want to survive, I'm only going to make what I think is going to sell, and that's it. And like, what is popular right now? What is trending? I got to make it, then maybe you're in fight or flight or freeze mode. But anyway, so I was doing this course and I was processing so many emotions. I was totally out of it. And I feel so liberated from them. I literally am only a week into it. And I just got to tell you, I have had such a rush of creativity, especially around what I want to offer you, how I want to teach you. And one of those realizations for me was that for literally, I think it's like 8 years now, I've been actively learning about shifting my mindset, reprogramming my subconscious, everything that is, quote, manifesting and energy work. I've been into astrology, human design. I was certified as a classical Chinese feng shui practitioner. I became a Reiki master because I really feel like we can know all of the practical things, but it's like so hard to actually make ourselves do it. I actually uh, was emailing with an artist and he's like, I know exactly what I need to do. You've given me all this practical advice, but I just need to get out of my own way. And so this episode is devoted to you getting out of your own way. And every episode, I think, going forward, maybe even because I notice that as long as I sprinkle this onto the practical advice I give, then it's kind of so much more powerful. And in today's solo episode, we're going to talk about some of the ways that you could stop feeling the ick around being an artist in this art world that might feel so icky sometimes, right? So, before we dive into that episode, I want to tell you how I got super creative. So, I am going to be opening the doors to the live version of the Artist Academy next month. Now, this program is a live group program, meaning we are going to meet for live Q&As. In addition to you being able to watch the modules and do the modules and all of that. It's for artists who really want to feel like powerful in the art world, who want to be armed with the knowledge of how it works and how they actually have the upper hand. Now, you will learn how to present your work both online and on social media and in general, and how to identify the right people and how to get that work in front of those people, whether they're gallery directors, curators, whatever, and everything in between. And this program is so, so special. I can go through everything, but I'm just going to give you kind of like the bullet points because I feel like I've talked about it a lot. You can actually go back and listen to the graduates of the Artist Academy. I've had a few episodes where they talk about their experience, but this is going to be like a whole new level of the Artist Academy because I'm going to infuse it not only with mindset, which it's already infused with that, but also with all of this other stuff. We're going to work on your subconscious, how to reprogram it, map out your new identity as an artist. We're going to use we're going to use feng shui, human design, energy work, like Reiki work, and astrology to get you there. And so I traditionally have 8 modules, and every single one of those modules is going to be infused with a little bit of that magical sprinkle of mystical guidance, right? And so traditionally, I've had a module where or a portion where we talk about, so it was divided into 4 parts, and it's going to be this way too, but we'll go to identify your intention, map out your new artist identity, and then talk about the intention behind your artwork so that it's easier for you to talk about your work in person so that you can write those emails, whatever you need to write about your artwork in a quick minute, right? And so that you can have an artist statement, an about page on your website, you'll know exactly how to speak about your work so that people truly understand it. We'll work on the presentation of your work. There's going to be a website module where you can either go through it and decide, like how you want your website to look, or you can use one of my Squarespace templates. I have a 7.0 and 7.1 template for you guys that are so good that major artists are using them. Like, it's pretty amazing. And I will also give you the opportunity to take a tech tutoring session either on your website or Instagram or both. You'll have several tech tutoring sessions available to you with our tech tutor. You'll learn about the structure of the art world. It's a pretty hefty module there, but it's so enlightening and how the art world works. You'll also get the how to know which galleries are right for you course content. So I'm going to drop that into the modules because this is a huge part of this course, right? You'll know which galleries are right for you. And if you're enrolled in how to know which galleries are right for you, you can totally like if you sign up for the Artist Academy, we'll do it so that whatever you paid for the How to Know Which Galleries Are Right for You course is deducted from your total for the Artist Academy so that you get in for to You get it. Anyway, and then we are going to map out your roadmap in the art world and how it works for you specifically. You'll learn how to navigate sales, whether you're with or without a gallery right now, whether you want a gallery or not. Although I gotta say, this course is really for those people who want to participate in the gallery world. Because after all of this, we're gonna have sessions where you meet a gallerist. And so there's going to be two sessions. You'll meet two gallerists, or maybe you'll meet a curator instead. We'll see. I just want to see who enrolls in the course and what their work is like to see who I will invite to meet you guys. So this is kind of like the coolest thing ever because from this opportunity, so at the end, after you really get your shit together, right? And know how to present your work, talk about it, and your energy is like amazing, you're going to meet gallerists. And in the past, when this has happened, it has been so amazing because we have had an artist get a solo show in New York City in like a really cool gallery in under 4 months from meeting the gallerist in the Artist Academy, so that was amazing. There's so much there, and also for the past 8 months, I've been offering this as a self-paced course, so if you have taken it and you wanna do the live version, you're gonna get a special offer to enroll in the live version, which is a little bit more hefty, because going to be it's going to have an extra component of the Q&As that are followed by the modules, and you're going to be meeting these gallerists. So what the way it'll work is you'll have a module drop every 2 weeks and a video to watch, and maybe sometimes there's a workbook. And then you'll have 2 weeks to do that module, and then we do the live Q&A. So it'll be a module drop, 2 weeks to do it, we'll have a live Q&A and then another module drop. And so this comes out to be a 4-month program, which is so amazing because it gives you so much accountability where and community because you get to meet the artists and it's so, so good. And speaking of community and accountability and all of that stuff, I just want to give a shout out to some of my graduates from the Artist Academy. Some of them have graduated ages ago, but this is so cool. So we've got Margaret Zox Brown, who's in a group show at the Pace University Art Gallery in downtown New York and downtown Manhattan called We're Home. Sandra Kavanagh in a group show at Pen and Brush called The Now Fever Dreams. We've got Joanne Steinhardt, who's in a group show at El Barrio Art Space called Layers of Identity. And these are all shows in New York City. And then we have Kono, so Erin Kono. And today, if you're listening to this podcast on Sunday, today is the last day of her solo show at the Dubuque Art Museum. This was an incredible exhibition. It's so good, and it was so fun to also know Erin pre and post and during the exhibition. Well, I guess it's not post the exhibition yet, but it was so fun to watch her process and to give her a little bit of guidance too. And we have Janet Rutkowski, who is a sculptor. She welds, and she co-curated an exhibition and is in an exhibition called Behind the Mask: Women Who Weld at the Staten Island Union and Spotlight Galleries at Wagner College in Staten Island. Then we've got Julie Kavanaugh. Got a really popular last name here at the Artist Academy, okay? And she has her work on view at the Triton Museum of Art Salon. So they had over 2,000 entries, and her work was selected to be in it. And we've got Lori Landry, who just had her work included in the American Art Collector magazine. I've got so, so much more. And so if you guys want me to announce your accomplishments, like send me an email and I will be sure to announce it. and just so we could all know what you're up to. It's so cool. I also want to give a shout out to my friend Katerina Popova for her for her solo show at Very Serious Gallery in Chicago right now. So that is on view for a little while longer. So if you're in Chicago, go see it. I'm so proud of you, Kat. I wish I could see it. All right. So, since we've been talking about manifesting, also one of the artists that I'm working with sent me a DM and said, "You know how I always wanted to show a residency in Rome? Tell me how." Three journalists just walked into my studio and asked for an interview, and they're from Italy. Like, that is an example of when your energy is aligned. So, congratulations to them. I'm so excited. So, anyway, if you're into joining the waitlist to the Artist Academy Live, right? Go ahead and sign up. The link is in the show notes, and you'll be the first to know when doors open. You'll also get the best deal for enrolling and the best bonuses. I really love it when you are a quick decision maker because then I know that I will have really, really good results with you and then I can brag about you. So that is why I'm giving you really good bonuses to sign up and make a decision as soon as you can. So, anyway, go ahead and get on that wait list. Okay, so let's dive in and talk about getting the getting rid of that icky feeling about the art world or kind of like being an artist in the art world because there's so many icky feelings we can have. And so today I want to tell you about some of the icky feelings that I read that you guys have that you responded to my Instagram story and I was like, what gives you the ick? And so I picked a few of these examples to kind of break them down for you and reprogram them out of your mind so that you can have a more direct way to your success. So you don't have to feel icky, right? But in order for us to understand that, I want to tell you how manifestation works. Now, if you're not into it, it's cool. Like, you don't have to listen to this episode. But if you're curious or you're into it, let's dive in. So, first and foremost, I'm going to tell you that you literally manifested everything that you have, right? You don't need to be conscious to manifest. It's actually the way that we manifest is through our subconscious. So, for example, consciously, you're thinking like, I can only find a parking spot, but it's going to be like a few blocks away from my destination. There's no way that I can find one right in front of my destination. And so what happens is that your subconscious mind has such a deeply rooted belief that this is the case that you will not even look for a parking spot close to your destination. You're going to be like, obviously I won't find it or I won't fit into that spot or whatever it is, right? But here's the thing, there's nothing stopping you from parking next to your destination except your belief that you can't. Because when you park 4 blocks away, you're parking in front of someone else's destination. And guess what? If they can do it, so can you. So let me break down how this works for you. So, what happens when you don't see that parking spot next to your destination? You choose the first one is you take on the identity of someone who believes that they can only find, you're like, I'm not lucky. I'm not going to find a parking spot in front of my destination. So, you take on that identity. And that informs what you believe deep down inside in your subconscious mind. You believe you won't even find that parking spot. And that belief makes you take that action that takes that action of taking the first parking spot that you see, which is 4 blocks away. You park, and there you manifested your environment where you parked, right? You manifested that parking spot 4 blocks away. So when you walk up to your destination, you might see a parking spot right in front of it and be like, oh, I can't believe I didn't do this. Right? Which goes into other forms of identity, right? But basically, here's how it works: your identity informs your beliefs, and that informs your actions, and that informs the result that you get. And that is basically your environment or your life result, right? Whatever is happening. And so we're actually taught that it's the opposite. And we're taught that way. Like a really good example is that we're taught that once we change our environment, we'll change our actions, and that'll change our beliefs, and that'll change our identity. And a really good way to describe that is like when you're like, okay, I'm going to change my environment. I'm going to sign up to go to the gym. And so my new environment is going to be the gym. And what happens, the idea is that you will then start going to the gym. You'll change your behavior and it'll change your beliefs. You'll be like, well, now I go to the gym all the time. It's programmed into me. It's just how I am and I'm healthy. And then it changes the identity, your identity. You're like suddenly a gym bunny or something. That's actually not how it works. You need to believe that you're a gym bunny first and or a healthy person or whatever it is that you want to believe of that will make you go to the gym. You'll need to remap your identity in order to have that result so much faster with so much less resistance because once you go identity once you change your identity, it'll adjust your beliefs to think that it's super easy for you to go to the gym all the time. And so you end up at the gym all the time. And essentially, your identity shifts into that identity that you believe it is, right? That's why you will hear these stories of people who like win the lottery and squander the money because they don't have it in their identity to have that amount of money. And there are so many other things that go into that as well. But anyway, so in this scenario, I want to just show you that system of identity to environment versus environment to identity. We're going to shift the identity here first. So, this happens so much in the art world and how you approach the art world. Your identity informs your beliefs and they become a self fulfilling prophecy. And so I want to give you the power to break through it and create this other type of identity, this new identity that doesn't give you the ick in any way. So let me tell you the responses that I got to my Instagram story where I was asking people what makes them feel icky in the art world. So here's what we've got. Someone said, so I actually know who said this, but I want to keep everyone's like privacy. This was like a really private moment. So one person said, people that are only interested in talking to you because you're important. Ooh, ouch. I feel like that is everywhere, not just like the art world. Like that is really intense. So we're gonna break apart this little ick. Then there's another person who said the constant hustle, right? Like feeling like you have to hustle all the time. Another person said women tend to be ignored until they die or their golden years. Another person said the artists are often the bottom of the food chain. Oh, sucks. And that kind of goes hand in hand with what this person said, and that's the gallerist arrogance. Oh, ouch. That actually goes also into the important thing, like thinking that people will only talk to you if you're important. And then the another person said that weird feeling that you can't trust anyone, that you have to be vigilant 24/7. Oh my gosh, just reading these, like, I feel you guys so much. And I like literally, this is why I started this business years ago. I started it because of feelings like this. I don't want you to feel the ick. You don't deserve to feel the ick like this. Okay. And I gotta tell you, I felt the ick so much when I was working in some galleries. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even I don't even want to tell you, but I guess I put it on Instagram so I can tell you. But I had actually one of my bosses would always be like, "Oh, just keep some heels under your desk so that when clients come in, you can put them on because it's nice and intimidating when you're tall," or something like that. And I could not believe I was like, "This if only we had an HR department." Right? Like, what? Anyway, so that kinda gave me the ick, and I've changed my identity so much so that now I have literally a foot massager under my desk, and I, like, walk around barefoot, because I don't wanna deal with that ever, right? And I don't have to. And as a matter of fact, I'm learning so I'm like, a big part of why I do what I do is because I want to learn so much more. Like I'm super curious about learning everything. And I feel like so many more doors are open to me now that I've totally let go of that belief that I have to, or that identity of myself where I was like super subordinate and like unworthy and unimportant, right? In the art world because I was not freaking like Larry Gagosian or something. But no, that's not who told me to wear heels. Just FYI. All right. Okay. All right. So, first, I'm going to tell you that all of these feelings that give you the ick are totally valid, right? But they are just a teeny tiny percentage of what you think they are. Like you only probably felt like this once or like a teeny tiny percentage of every other feeling in the art world. And that's because we have a negative bias. Like, you could get 99 compliments, but the one that makes you feel icky, like if you get a disparaging remark, that one will just resonate with you because we have this negative bias. And we have a negative bias, obviously, like to always be prepared for the worst because when we were like our ancestors were living in caves and stuff, we were always on the lookout for the worst. We needed to prepare for the worst, and that's how we would survive. And so that gave us an inherent negativity bias. And so here we are living literally in the lap of luxury, still having this negativity bias, keeping ourselves uh, in an effort to keep ourselves safe, right? Because what happens when we don't do well, what happens is we keep ourselves safe when we know that the gallerist is arrogant. So we don't really go over there and talk to them. We keep ourselves safe when we think that, oh, as a woman artist, I'll probably be ignored until I'm older. So why even like try now? Right. And so this is exactly what I want to talk to you about today, how to break down these beliefs because you don't deserve to have them. You deserve to be wearing a freaking crown right now. Okay. All right. So let's begin to remove the fact that these things can make you feel icky from your subconscious today, right? Let's get rid of this belief, right? Because these are all subjective beliefs. But I gotta tell you, I wanna validate you that you probably did experience them, but a tiny, tiny percentage of the time, right? So let's take this one for example. People are only interested in talking to you because you're important. So I want to tell you two things. First, how many times have you walked into a room, seen an important person, quote unquote, and decided to speak to someone else because that important person felt intimidating or unreachable. Right? I mean, I certainly have. And so it goes both ways. Like sometimes people don't want to talk to the important person, right? But I want to take a look at this outside of that fear and outside of the ego, kind of. So we are all connected by this common thread that is the universe, right? There's this beautiful thing called the universal law of oneness. There's actually like 13 universal laws or 12 depending on who you ask, and then some more and all of that stuff. But this one, the law of oneness, is something that I learned when I was attuned in my very first in Reiki 1, right? When the very first Reiki I was attuned in, I learned the universal law of oneness from the Reiki master who attuned me. And so, one way to look at it is that if you see that somebody else has done it, you can do it too. And actually, that's how I learned how to drive in New York City because I was like, you know what? If I can see that all these other people are driving, I can do it too. There's nothing that separates me from them in terms of doing this thing, right? And like, look, I don't want to be completely ignorant of our like society and how it's much easier for some people to do certain things, especially if they're white, right? In our society. But I want to give you this idea of the universal law of oneness, right? That you are just as important as that important person. You are all fully connected. You are the same in that way on this universal level. So when you embody this fully, you understand that you are just as important as that important person. So you're one of them, right? You are the important person. So okay, let's say it doesn't bother you that people are interested in talking to you only because you're important. Or it doesn't, yeah, like this thing doesn't exist for you. You're not worried about uh you don't think that people aren't going to talk to you because they don't think that you're important. So if you take on the identity of someone who this doesn't bother, because let's say you're also an important person, right? Because of the universal law of oneness here, that's just who you are. What would you be doing differently? Where would you be going? What rooms would you be showing up in? How do you open up your energy field? And what like events would you even decide to go to? Who might you meet there? What would you say to that important person? And every time I say important person, I put like air quotes on. I obviously know you can't see that. But what would you say to that important person? Would you be like, "Yeah, you're important. I love your movie," or whatever it is? Or would you say, "Hey, this is some good wine." That's a shocker because they usually don't have great wine at these things, right? Like, or whatever it is. So how would you change your identity? How would you shift? And how would you shift it on that level? We don't have to go all the way into like the big, big level right away into the macro. We can go into the micro. Like, how do you carry yourself? How does your energy field change? How do you approach others? Right. So really think about that because our mind is so susceptible to how we feel about our identity in so many ways. We actually make up to 35,000 or more decisions a day. When we make that many decisions, it's really a choose your own adventure kind of situation because we get to choose our own adventure based on how we make those decisions. And we make those decisions based on our identity. All right. So the method is really quite simple, but the tough thing is like seeing past the programmed beliefs that even create this new identity, right? So how I broke it down there for you hopefully helps you. But let's look at the other examples. So, okay, the constant hustle. So, the identity of someone who finds the constant hustle icky is that you might feel like you constantly have to be doing something to get opportunities, exhibition shows, whatever it is, because you believe that you have to. And perhaps you believe you are not well known enough or something like that. So you constantly feel like you have to apply to things. Perhaps you have to get them and overcommit. You might be burnt out, or maybe like you're not even focusing on the one thing that you really, really want to focus on because you are spread so thin, right? And so this becomes really, really frustrating because you're like, what the heck? I'm not supposed to be this burnt out from doing something I love, right? So, what if you take on this identity? You're a magnet. Opportunities come to you. You literally could be sitting there in your studio and you're going to be getting phone calls, right? If you just take on that identity for a moment, what are you doing differently? How are you doing everything differently? What are you focusing on? And how does your energy change? I'm so curious to know because you don't need to do. Like, if this feels too scary for you to shift right now, to shift that identity, why don't you do it for one day? Just do it for one day and see how it feels. Because ultimately, you are a magnet. You brought all of those opportunities that you have to yourself already. What if you let go of the feeling that you are, or the identity that you are a hustler, right? So you are now a magnet. Okay. Next one is women tend to be ignored until they die or their golden years. Okay. So the old identity is that you're like one of a trillion women artists who like literally no one cares about until you're no longer with us or much older. You feel like an invisible woman. So the new identity is that you're an artist and you're not ignored, right? You think every opportunity you think about all the opportunities you've had already and how you're literally going to be discovered tomorrow, or you have been discovered, right? You have been discovered because you have had these opportunities and take on the identity of someone who has even more opportunity than you already have had. Okay, so we might have a barking dog for the remainder of this podcast. My husband plays D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, and so everybody's actually coming over right now. But I am determined to release this podcast episode today. So we're going to just keep going through it, and you're just going to know a lot about me and my dog and how she barks. Anyway, she barks at people when they come into the house because she's like, hey, look at me. Or maybe she's protecting us. She needs a new identity as a dog that doesn't bark. I'm going to talk to her. Anyway, okay. Or maybe I need the identity of somebody whose dog doesn't bark, right? What would I do? How would I adjust that? So anyway, so back to women tend to be ignored until they die or their golden years. Let's say the new identity is you're an artist who is not being ignored at all. You are literally thriving and you are a popular woman artist. How do you change the way you do things? How do you change the way you post on Instagram? How much more often do you maybe post? How do you change your identity? Um, how do you change your actions after you switch to that identity? How do you do it? Right. Now, the next one is that artists are often the bottom of the food chain and like the gallerist arrogance. So this one is literally one of my pet peeves, and this is where I sprinkle in some practical advice as well. Like, I mean, I guess it's all very practical, but we're going to shift away from the mindset work for a moment. Or maybe it is a reframe. I don't know. Okay, so here's the thing. Back in the day, so many art, like old world art people would think this way, that artists are the bottom of the food chain, because for a very long time, they kind of were. The top of the food chain was traditionally the collector, because they would be the one that would keep the gallery open. They would like go to the gallerists and buy the work. They would influence the museums because they sat on the museum boards, and therefore they would then influence the curators. And the artist was just at the whim of all of these people. But now, because of the internet, everything has shifted. The artist no longer needs the middle man of the gallerist, the museum, or the curator to get to the collector. And the collector knows that they don't have that much pull on the artist, because the artist doesn't need them to get in front of the gallerist, the museum, or the curator. But I mean, it still could all work beautifully and symbiotically. But right now, because of the internet, the artist gets in front of the galleries, the museums, the curators, and collectors, and they get to decide, right? If you take on this new identity of someone who doesn't have to feel this ick, they get to decide what they want to make, where they want to show, who your audience is. What would you do differently if you took on this identity of actually you're on top of the food chain? You have all the power. The galleries need you more than anything, because they know you can sell without them now. You get to choose which galleries you work at or with. You get to choose the museums that you want to show your work in. Shout out to Erin, who just had a solo show at the Dubuque Museum of Art, right? Like, without a gallery brokering the whole thing, this is incredible, right? Artists are now at the top of the pyramid. So, or at the top of the food chain. And a really good example of that is, I was sitting with an artist that I with or worked with one to one. When I used to work one to one with artists, we were in Miami, and it was during the art fairs, and somehow we found like a quiet hotel rooftop, and it was like so chill. And then we realized it was so chill because nobody was letting anyone up onto that roof deck anymore, because Rihanna was sitting behind us in like a cabana. It was so wild. And anyway, so we were like literally the only ones by the pool, and this guy comes by, and he goes, "Hey, like, what do you guys do? What do you gals do? Blah, blah, blah." And he's talking to us. And my friend and artist that I worked with and still kind of work with, goes, "Well, I'm an artist." And he goes, "Oh, well, like, do you show with a gallery?" And she goes, "Well, not right now. I'm kind of looking." And he walked away, and I was like, "Hey, you can't say that. You've got to be like, yeah, I'm actually not looking for a gallery, or like, I'm actually selling out of my studio right now, right? Like, you don't need a gallery." Anyway, so that is the reframe, right? And if you took on the identity of someone who is at the top of the food chain, how would you change the way that you do things, right? So then the last one, which is really, really good, is that weird feeling that you can't trust anyone, that you have to be vigilant 24/7. Here's the thing. When you feel like you can't trust anyone, you're kind of giving into this idea that you are a victim of them mistreating you. You are not a victim, you're the boss. You are in charge of yourself, and you are actually really, really sly. You are the fox. So the old identity is that you're someone who can be wronged and duped. And the new identity is you're the boss and you are the sly fox, right? You can see through everyone's bullshit. And if that's the case, how do you approach things? Maybe when somebody sends you, invites you to an opportunity and you can see right through the BS in that, you call them out on it, or you ask them, like, hey, I'm unclear about that. Can you explain this more? Right? What do you mean? I have to pay for the shipping back from the gallery, right? Or whatever it is. Or what do you mean I have to pay $300 to show in the gallery and on top of everything else, or whatever. So what would you do differently if you have these new identities? How would your beliefs change and how would that affect the way that you act? How would that affect your behavior? And then you'll see that the outcome is going to be different, right? Your identity will shift as well. So, anyway, I hope this podcast episode is good for you. I hope it helped you. And I'm going to take on the identity of someone who's like a total guru in this because I feel like if I can help just one person with this, then my job is done. Like, this is huge. So, thank you all so much for listening. And once again, if you're into doing the Artist Academy live, please sign up to the wait list so that you know when the doors open. You'll get the best deals. And if you're already involved in my universe somehow, you're going to get an even better deal. So, thank you so, so much. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening. Support your community by sharing this podcast, leaving a review, and follow The Artist Advisory on Instagram at @the_artist_advisory. And visit us online at www.theartistadvisory.com.